Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Daydream Nation, and I've got Todd Evans back to the channel. How are you, Todd?
Doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. And I thought it would be very timely on this channel that we talk about The Cure. So, what we are going to do today is we are going to cover our favorite Cure albums. So, Todd is going to put a spotlight on his favorite Cure album. I'm going to put a spotlight on mine, and then we'll do a bit of an interchange of spotlighting songs from each, and we'll take it from there and maybe just have a bit of a yak about all things The Cure. Also note, Todd, that you saw The Cure this year, so maybe
I
we can
did.
talk about
Yes,
a few
I'd love
questions
to.
about their live set and how that went. So I'll throw it over to you, Todd. What
Okay.
is your favorite Cure album?
Well, whenever I tell anybody that this is my favorite Cure album, I get a lot of surprised looks. I guess nobody really ever picks this one, or not as much as another one, which will remain nameless. Which I also this one and the one that I have at number two are literally like this. I mean, there's barely any distance between them. But my favorite is Wish. And from 1990, is 1992, is that correct? And yeah, that's my favorite one. I've also got the newly reissued vinyl, which is really nice. I don't think there was one back then, not in the States anyway. Um, the reason why I love this album so much is I feel like Wish is one of the reasons is that I feel like it's the end of what I consider to be their best era, and I feel like from the head on the door to Wish is the chunk of the greatest stuff. No, I'm not one of those people that dislikes what came after. I actually like it quite a bit, but I feel like that's the best. And one of the things that I think is really great about it is that I love Boris Williams. I love the drummer Boris Williams. I think he's perfect for The Cure. I think that the way he plays is so economical, and I think it suits them so well. Just not that many fills, and when he plays fills, they're really simple fills, and not a lot of metal, which is usually something that I don't really care for. But I like that it's not. One of the things that bothered me about the Wild Mood Swings when Jason Cooper took over on drums is it felt like there were so many cymbals, and I was like, it's not Led Zeppelin, it's The Cure. But but I love the way the rhythm section sounds on this record, and I feel like it's got. We're going to talk about tracks in a little while, but I feel like it has the best Cure song in Letter to Elise. I feel like Friday I'm in Love is the best Cure single. I think it's absolutely perfect, and I've got more to say about it. But I think that Wish is it has a lot of the atmospheric symphonic qualities of Disintegration, but it also has some things that sound more like Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me and Head on the Door kind of mixed in. So it's like part Disintegration, part the couple of albums before that. And uh, as thick and lush as it sounds, it's also playful at the same time. I just think it's the best. I don't want to. I hesitate to say compromise because that sounds like a negative word, but I feel like it's the best compromise between Disintegration and the earlier couple of albums that I think are really are a little more playful and a little more rock and roll. And so that's why I those are some of the reasons that I like Wish the best.
Nice, nice. Well, what we'll do is we'll talk about some of the songs, your favorite songs off the album. Um, my favorite album by The Cure is Disintegration. So this is the one that precedes it,
It's
and
hard not to pick that one. It
I
really
just,
is.
I just love it. And it's got three of my all-time favorite The Cure songs, like Pictures of You, Lullaby, Love Song. I find it a very intoxicating album, and I don't think it totally sheds the gothic sounds of those early albums. You can still hear echoes. I often wonder there was a lot of criticism about The Cure in this period, Todd, whether they became more commercial. Did they change their sound? I think that the world just caught up with them, and that's why they became big. That's
Yeah,
what I
I
think
do.
it is. They may have adjusted their sound, broadened their palette in regards to putting different instrumentation, but I still think their basic song structure is always having quite simple riffs and wrapping all this melody around it and just making it atmospheric and intoxicating. And I really think the world just caught up with them. Probably the album before was the one that really triggered it off in America. Now,
Hmm.
folks in Australia, we caught on right from the get-go. I'm talking about Boys Don't Cry and,
Yeah.
their start. I remember seeing them on um, a show called Countdown, and they were really in their early incarnation, and we really, took them to our hearts. But I think in the Americas, Kiss Me was probably where they really sort of embraced the Cure. And I think maybe the adjustment for that album was they probably became a little bit sexy, a little bit more, finding the groove
Yeah.
thing. That was
I've
probably
got
an extra,
some things to
another
say
arrow
about
to their
that. Yeah.
bow. Yeah.
Yeah.
But getting back to this album, I just think there's romanticism, but at the same time, it's still got that element, which is a constant theme of Robert Smith all the way through his discography of grief, regret, um, sort of infatuation. I love that he just misses by that much, where he's it's always there's always this melancholy, and they're one of those few bands, Todd, like Depeche Mode. I put in the category that can make melancholy so intoxicating and so uplifting.
Hmm.
Like at the
Yeah.
surface, you
Sad
think,
songs
oh,
that make
this
you feel good. Yeah.
sad songs like Depeche Mode. You listen to them, and then you read the lyrics, and you just oh, but it just makes it so. Radiohead, they're another band. It's
Hmm.
just one of these bands that their whole discography is kind of melancholy, but at the same time, it's quite uplifting. But Disintegration, I think he shows a little bit of light in his heart, and there's a little bit of sun, and then it's more prevalent when it gets into your favorite album, where he kind of really, lets it all loose and it comes out. But
Yeah.
yeah, Disintegration, I think the band's on fire. It's a sprawling album. Deservedly, it charted right up in the charts. I mean, I think like Love Song went to number 2 in America, and much deserved that
Hmm.
it went so high in the charts. And yeah, I just think it's their masterpiece. But it's really hard to pick because I love a lot of the Cure albums, even the later ones. And I'm
Hmm.
looking forward to when Robert Smith finally puts a new
Oh, me
album out,
too.
which I thought it was going to be this year. But
I did too.
yeah, anyway.
Because I thought that, it won't come out in time for the tour, but maybe while the tour is still going, or maybe right after it ends, but not quite
Yeah,
yet.
absolutely. All right, well, why don't we take it in turns? We'll spotlight a couple of songs. So what's your first song you'd like to spotlight off, Wish?
Okay, well, I will start with the first track on Wish, Open. Um, Open has one of the things I like about it. For one thing, well, it's cool that it's called Open and it's the opening track. But one of the things I like about it is that it's not an easy opening track. It doesn't. It kind of makes you feel like, hey, I'm going to have to work a little bit to get into this album. It's atmospheric, but also heavy at the same time. But it's also kind of ethereal. It's a combination of a lot of things. And one of the things that I and you touched on this, it's for a while I struggled to figure out what the right word is. I want to describe it as sexy, but I think you could also say erotic, kind of.
Mm.
But it's you almost have to quantify that with, well, let me tell you why I said that. I feel like Fascination Street on the album on Disintegration is also this way. And I don't mean it in I'm going to stay home on a Saturday night and cut out pictures of Robert Smith. I mean it as in a general over sweeping kind of sexy. And
Mm.
that's one of the things that I think that they were working towards that. I feel like the kiss on "Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me" is like that, and like I said, Fascination Street. Lots of Disintegration, and lots of this album too. And that's kind of a cool thing. And I actually think that that's a goth thing. I think that that's kind of a goth element of it. And when people say that goth music is dark, I think that's one of the things they're talking about is but I think Open is great. I think it's when you first hear it, when you're new to it, I think it's easy to think that you don't know what to make of it, but I think it's really beautiful. And the whole first part of this album, really the whole, I mean, High comes later, and it's kind of bouncy, but it's also thick. But at the same
Mm,
time, as far as the arrangement is concerned, but then it's also playful too. And
yeah.
I feel like the songs on Disintegration are kind of like that too. But yeah, Open is a really interesting album opener because it's not what you might think. I mean, I'll go back again to Disintegration. It kind of hits you with that wall of synths, and it's so wow. Listen to how confident this album starts. And Open is a little more lilting. It's a little more. It kind of eases you into it, and I think that's cool. When I first heard it, I was like, wow, that's I haven't heard very many albums that start this way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like with Disintegration, it starts off with Plain Song, but it's not the obvious song that you would imagine that you would pick for the
Yeah.
Cure. It's sort of like a little bit of an overture. To me, it's
Hmm.
pictures of you that kind of bursts onto the
Yes.
screen. Well, I'll showcase that song. That's one of the ones. It's actually based on a story where Robert Smith's house was on fire, and he was able to recover some photos, and the photos of his wife, and he based this whole song on that. But it's got a very simple riff. It's intoxicating, and they wrap the instruments, all the other instrumentation around it, and it sort of just drives along, and it's just totally compelling. And basically, it's the usual Robert Smith template of topics in lyrics. Regret, looking at a past relationship, perhaps, and you know, having some angst as to what could have been. There's a lot of regret. There's a lot of sort of internalizing of emotions and bringing it out in song. I was thinking that, like a lot of genres that followed The Cure, you'd have to say emo. Were they the first emo band as well? They
I think
are
that's
quite
possibility.
emotional.
Yeah. I think you can make a pretty strong argument for that.
I think
Yep.
you can. Sonically, emo is much harder. I mean, there is the pop element, but it's a lot of. I think a lot of the fans are not just there for Robert Smith and the pop aspect and put it on the wall. A lot of them look at the lyrics and just do a deep dive, and there's just so much to unpack in regards to the Cure, and I think they were probably one of the first emo bands. But
Yeah, I think
yeah,
so too. I mean, when I think about going, how I felt about the world and things and relationships when I was in my 20s, first half of my 20s, I think that like Cure lyrics are really you really felt them at the time, and I think that it has something to do with I think that that's something that's also happens in emo. So yeah, I agree.
yeah, yeah. I loved how you were talking about Boris Williams. He's a very tribal drummer. I love it when
Mhm.
the, he does that sort of tribal drums.
Yeah.
He does keep it simple, but he is perfect for the band, and that's
Mhm.
why I think I agree. This middle period is the shining. I mean, if you look at how many musicians have been in the band, it's an expansive family tree. But I just think this era on this album, where they just hit the nail. They just had the right players, and they were
Yeah.
all sharing the vision. But internally, there was lots of problems. You had alcohol. There was substance abuse. Yeah, I think it was a little bit messy in regards to the band relations, but for them to put this sort of album out, I think it's just a miracle, and it's quite magnificent.
Yeah.
All right, what's your next
Agreed.
pick?
Well, I'm going to jump forward to Friday I'm in Love. But first, I wanted to say something about Apart really quick. Apart has it's the third track on Wish, and it has kind of a really good example of something called Counterpoint. And we're going to talk about that when I get to A Letter to Elise, because of course I'm going to talk about that one because it's my favorite one.
Mm.
But I didn't want to not mention that about Apart because it's another track that does that really well. But Friday I'm in Love, I think, is pretty much perfect. I don't even know what words to say about it. For somebody like me who really loves keyboards and really loves electronic symphonic kinds of lush arrangements, Friday I'm in Love hardly has any, but I still think it's perfect. I think that the guitar riff I have trouble finding words. It's amazing. I feel like lyrically, I feel like most people would agree it's that Friday is pretty much the perfect day. I love the way he says Saturday, wait, and then Sunday always comes too late. I think everybody feels that way about Sunday because Sunday's depressing because you got to go back to work or school the next day, and you're like, where was Sunday when I needed you? Like on Thursday, you know?
Do you think there's a slight nod to the Easy Beats with Friday on My Mind? Because they were
Oh,
the
sure,
first
yeah.
band that
Yeah.
invented that sort of during the week leading up to Friday and the euphoria of Friday.
That's true. You can't really credit the Cure with doing it first. But there's this great, I think I've talked about it before. There's this great meme that's Robert Smith's calendar. And for each day, like Monday, Tuesday, it's like fall apart, break your heart, heart attack.
Mm.
And then Friday it says I'm in love. And then every Saturday it says wait. And then on Sunday it says too late. But I just feel like it's something that everybody can relate to, and the music that goes with it is perfect, and I absolutely love
Yeah.
it.
I'm going to go a little bit left field here because I always do. I always have it in my head that one other band that kind of has that sort of similar sonic wheelhouse to The Cure and could do a song like that and reminds me of their early material is The Church.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
I don't know why, but that song, I can
No, I think they
imagine
could have done
Steve
that.
Kilbey and Marty Wilson Piper, the chiming, jangly guitars doing something, like the unguarded moment. I always feel like it's sort of in that sort of similar ballpark.
Sure, yeah, I agree. Definitely.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk about Lullaby. It's such a beautiful, delicate, intoxicating song. It's one of my favorite songs on this album. I love the pizzicato strings. I love it's kind of like a Japanese folk song. And viewers, I have a little bit of a guilty pleasure when there's kind of these Asian or Japanese scales, and in music there are these sort of scales that sound very much like that. I gravitate to it, and it's just the perfect song. It's perfect pop. It just it's based on a child's nightmare, and it's Robert Smith. It's going to his inner child, and it's taking him back to when he was young, and he's probably in bed and just looking at the shadows and just his imagination just going wild. And I just think it's a masterpiece packaged in this song. And the Spider-Man, it's got so much drama and builds up. It kind of has these little waves of drama. It's compelling.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm blabbering too much. I might throw
No,
it over
that's
to you.
okay.
What do you think of this song? I just love
I
it.
think every kid has their thing, and I think his thing is the Spider-Man, basically the giant
Yeah,
spider who's going to eat him.
yeah,
Uh, the video is great. The video is kind of gross, and it's just perfect for it. And it's also got that kind of sexy thing going for it. And The atmosphere is, for what he's talking about, the musical atmosphere for it is perfect.
The tale of the Spider-Man swallowing his victims. It's a
Right.
bit much more darker than a Child's Tale. It definitely has that Robert Smith twist to it, but it's just an intoxicating. I think this album has, I mean, the three songs. I'm just trying to think. Pictures of You, Lullaby, and Love Song are the three. If you listen to this album, imagine your A&R, all the suits, they're sitting around the table. They would be the three songs that I would say they're the singles, one, two, three.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
the rest of the album, it's not filler, but it's very atmospheric and it wraps around it. But these are kind of the high points of the album for me. And it's so abundantly obvious when you listen to it that these would be the breakout singles. Would you agree?
I would, and I like the way that they're in the middle. I like the way that they're not at the beginning. You know, they're not at the beginning of side one or the beginning of side two or whatever. Well, they might have been in the beginning of side two if we're
Yeah,
splitting it in half, but I like
yeah,
that they don't hit you with a no suit win and said, oh well, you've got to start with Lullaby. You
yeah.
know, it starts how it starts and you don't mess with it.
I think
Um,
it's carefully song listed, and it doesn't
yeah,
do that lazy 80s of, well, let's just put the hits at the start of the album and then
yeah,
everything kind of tapers out. Not that there is a dull song on this album, but I just think it's
right.
perfect.
But
And
that's kind of how you can separate the 80s, and I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to make anybody mad, but that's kind of how you can separate the heavy hitters of the 80s and the bands that didn't get much further than like a year or two or an album or two is when you sometimes it just felt like there was a concerted effort to put, well, there's only so many good songs, so we're just going to put them right in the front and we're not going to worry about the rest so much. And
yeah,
so I don't remember who it was. Oh, Real Life. I will mention one band. There was a band called Real Life. I don't know if you remember them, but they had that song "Send Me an Angel." And I
I do.
remember they put out another album in like '86, and it actually started with "Send Me an Angel" '86. It's like they were worried that they weren't going to sell any records, so they just made their hit song again. And
Yeah, yeah,
so The Cure is not that.
yeah, absolutely. I got that album. Well, I think it's called Dreamland. It's
Yeah,
solid.
I think so.
And folks, for those at home, I prefer the original Semi and Agent Angel.
Yes.
I don't like the bass heavy gated drums, slightly heavy
Yeah.
metal version.
Yeah.
No, I, Todd, I actually think they've done four versions of that song.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know when house music became big, and they
Hmm.
used to tack on popular songs or songs from like 10 years before, and they'd
Oh,
put
like Pet Shop Boys. Yeah.
yeah, and
Okay.
they would put the keyboards and make it sound just built for the clubs. They'd do like a Frankie
Hmm.
Knuckles mix. It's
Right.
terrible, terrible. So anyway, all right. What's your next pick?
I'm going to go to Trust. Um, Everybody knows that anybody that knows anything about me is going to know that I'm going to love Trust. The cool thing about Trust is I think it is the song that sounds the most like Disintegration. In fact, the keyboard atmosphere sounds at the beginning of it are pretty much the same as they are. It's the same gear, I think, and the same techniques that they were using for a bunch of the songs on Disintegration. But then the Mellotron strings kick in, and it's just an even another dense, beautiful layer. Uh, I feel like it's got classic Robert Smith guitar in it. It's the drum fills are perfect. They're really simple, and in fact, I think there's one towards the end that's just like the hi hat, and so you think there's going to be a drum fill, but it's just the hi hat. So tastefully done, and so yeah, I absolutely love Trust.
No, that's a great track. And look, Wish is right up there. Seriously, folks. I know that a lot of people sort of think, oh, that's when they started. I just think it's outstanding, and it's a good companion piece, really. Um, to this one,
I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. And
absolutely.
it's funny what happened later. I, I think Wild Mood Swings, I think there's a really good 35-minute album in there if you just take out about 6 tracks. So
Yeah,
what came after Wish, I think, is not necessarily worse. It's just there's something about it that just didn't work the way Wish worked.
yeah. I'm not
And
a
so,
not a not a fan. Hey, I'm going to put your. I'm just looking. I actually did a little ranking of the albums, and
okay.
if I hit you over the head with what's your top five, would you be able to do that?
Oh, I think I could probably do it. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I could do it.
I'll tell you mine. So number five, The Head on the Door. Number
Okay.
four, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. Number three, The Cure, the self-titled.
Okay.
Number two, Pornography, and number one,
Okay.
Disintegration. That's my top five.
Okay. So I just wrote them down just so I wouldn't get stuck and forget.
Yeah,
Did you start with your fifth or your first?
yeah. I did my fifth, which was The Head on
Oh,
the Door.
okay. My fifth is Blood Flowers. I think that it's underrated. I said that
Mm,
on when we did a show on the Contrarians called Top Three Cure Albums, and when I picked Blood Flowers over Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, I it was very unpopular.
well, that's why they call the Contrarians.
My number five is Blood Flowers. My number four is Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. My number
Yeah,
three is Head on the Door, and my
yeah,
number two is Disintegration, and number one is Wish.
yeah. What's your number 11? What's the one that you like the least?
Oh my goodness!
I chose The Top.
You
Not a fan of
know,
The Top.
again, it's funny. The Top is a pretty short album, but like I said that Wild Mood Swings was a good 35-minute album. I think The Top is a good 4-song EP.
Mm,
But I
they're
don't put
great.
it last. I would probably put the first album because it feels like maybe it's not quite fully formed. The Cure isn't
Yeah,
quite fully formed, or The Cure, the self-titled one. Even though I
yeah,
like it, something's
yeah.
got to be down there.
Oh, interesting. No, I'm glad you shared that because, yeah, just interesting to give the viewers a little bit of a perspective. And I'll throw it in. This gentleman next
Oh
to
yeah.
me and myself, we did a little book with Martin Popoff called The Cure Album by Album. And we were assigned um, albums to do some commentary on. And it's just basically like the shows that we're on the YouTube channel, the Contrarians. So, yeah, you can still get it through Martin Popoff or look up on Amazon. And it's real.
Yeah, I think
I'm
they're
very
still on
proud of it.
Amazon. Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah, me
proud
too.
of how it
And
turned out.
Martin made us sound really good.
Yes,
He did a
yes,
great editing job where he pulled comments from people when they were talking about other albums and they referred to the album that the chapter is on. He would pull those comments and it just seems seamless. It feels like the 6 or 7 of us that were on it. It feels like we're all in the same room. It's remarkable.
absolutely.
It's yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, definitely get this.
fantastic. No, I'm very proud. And yeah, you did a great job, Todd.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you. All right, love song, Dreamy, went to number 2 in the US charts. It's a really heartfelt song, and there's kind of a restraint in his vocals. So you get a lot of Robert Smith where he gets excited, he kind of pushes it and he ramps it up. But this one I like. It's kind of if he was like an acting, it'd be like understated. He's restraining it, and he makes the listener really listen in and absorb the lyrics. And again, it's got a bass line and the drums. That's kind of the driving force of this song, and the melody wraps around it, and it's intoxicating. I've said that word quite a few times, but
That's kind of the word you have to keep going back to when you're talking about both of these albums. The thing that I love so much about Love Song is that where you've got this album Disintegration, where you've got all of these really thick, lush textures, and
mm,
then Love Song's kind of light. It's just got organ. It's kind of a departure. It doesn't feel like it's a part. It doesn't feel like Whiplash. It doesn't feel like, oh, they've just
Yeah,
gone a completely different direction. But it
yeah,
really is pretty different from the rest of it.
absolutely. And just to think what was in the charts at that particular time, it's one of the most unconventional top five hits, that you would ever find in the US. I mean, this is the time of Jody Watley or Michael Bolton or whatnot, and here you've got this sweet little heartfelt, emotive song from The Cure, and it's sitting here at number two. It's sort of, I think it made a lot of the Cure fans very proud that their little band, their cult band, the world had caught up, and people were catching on to them.
Yeah,
I mean, were you in the record shop at that time? Was that selling, flying
it's
out of the
after.
store? Oh,
Yeah, it's
after.
after. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I worked in record stores until 1988.
Right,
So
okay.
barely.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Another song? Another song you'd like to
Well,
spotlight?
I'm going to talk about A Letter to Elise, and I hope people don't think, oh my God, there he goes again with Letter to Elise. It's my favorite, it's my favorite Cure song. I think that it is probably one of the best examples of counterpoint. And I actually, in case somebody doesn't know what that is, I actually have a definition of it that I want to read. In music, counterpoint is the relationship between two or more musical lines or voices which are harmonically interdependent, yet independent in rhythm and melodic contour. Commonplace during the Baroque period, and it's originates from the Latin punctus contra punctum, which means point against point or note against note. And so what and the Cure does this a lot. And one of my criticisms about later Cure is they don't do it as much after this particular period we're talking about. But they introduce a melody, then they introduce another melody that goes at the same time with it that fits it, and then they may introduce two or three more. And the Cars also really good at this. And so A Letter to Lisa is like that. It's got like the bass line, and then it's got the little toy piano uh, sound in it. That's that little melody, and that goes away for a while, and then we'll talk about the bridge in a minute. A Letter to Elise has the best bridge of all time, but it's got all of these things, and then it's got the string melody that goes along with it, and all these things fit on top of each other. And when you get to that bridge, I think it's absolutely perfect. It leads into such a great guitar solo and so simple. I mean, the guitar solo in A Letter to Elise is so simple, but it's so effective. And then it gets to that peak, and then that string sound, the string part comes in, and then they introduce the toy piano back into it, and it's such a brilliant moment. And then they let that repeat before they get back into the verses. You have the guitar solo, and then the kind of the climax of the guitar solo, and then the toy piano comes back, and then they play those bars again. It's like perfect. If you really love the song, it's just the right. It's not too long and not too short. And then I just think that the song is just absolutely gorgeous. It's one of the best structured rock songs I've ever heard in my life, and I really like it a lot. And that's what makes me feel like the later Cure material, like which I also like quite a bit, they're not doing that as much. And I think part of the reason is it's hard.
Yeah, yeah. I was
That
going
kind
to
of
say that
composition is
counterpoint,
hard.
counterpoint is very difficult.
Yeah,
So you
and
need a really good arranger. So is Smith arranging this, or is he depending on one of his collaborators within the band to assist him? What's your views on this?
I think that he probably can do it himself, but I think in this case they're probably doing it together. Um, who knows? It'd be a great question to ask him.
Yeah,
And The Cure isn't the only band that does this. This is, I mean, in pop music, and especially in art rock, and there's a lot of that melodies that the Cure are just masters of it.
yeah. Like one that comes to mind is Scritti Politti, Cupid and
Yeah,
Psyche. That is just
yeah,
got counterpoint galore.
yeah.
And that's a masterpiece, folks. If you like synth
Yes.
pop, that's just It's just groundbreaking. He's
Yeah, OMD is good at this.
mm,
OMD had that period where they had where they were taking like little bits and pieces from commercials and like Japanese television and looping them and
mm,
then putting counter melodies on top of those during the Crush Pacific Age years where there's a
it's
lot of
sort of like
amazing things happening
it
there.
goes into this whole topic of pop as art or rock as art
Right.
because it is just exquisite. So,
Yeah.
but look, I think the Cure in their later career was stripping it down, and those later albums came out around post grunge, and alternative
Mhm.
music was very much at the fore. And whether the Cure was seen as at the leader of the pack or following it, that could be a school of thought. But I think they were definitely stripping their sound down.
Got
Like
to
those
figure out
later,
where you belong. Yeah.
yeah, those
And you know
later
there are
albums were very metallic.
yes, but there are also little masterpieces in those albums. There's a song
Yeah.
the self-titled album called Before Three, which is probably
Mm.
a top five Cure song for me. I think it's much like Friday I'm in Love. I think it's simple and perfect. I mean, just a
Yeah.
great in that song. And so yeah, I mean they can obviously still do it. Now, the songs that they were playing live that haven't come out yet, those are pretty spectacular. So really looking forward to hearing those.
Eventually,
Yeah,
hopefully.
eventually.
I'll finish up. My last pick is Close Down. I love the lyrics. I'm running out of time. I'm outside of step and closing down. And the last line, if only I could fill my heart with love. So,
Yeah.
again,
It's hard for me to talk about that one without getting a little misty.
it is,
Very
but it's
touching.
really just bearing his soul. And
Yeah.
again, you've got the tribal drums and
Hmm.
you've got the synth. It's got this like trance like synth wash, and you listen to it, and it's just compelling. It's kind of a simple arrangement, but it's compelling, and the lyrics are king. I said it in this book, and I've said it previously. Lyrics are just as important as the musicology with the Cure. So there are
Yeah.
some bands where it's just music and lyrics are 10%. I think it's 50-50.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. You saw The Cure earlier this year. Tell us
Hmm.
about the live show.
Well, I was pretty amazed at a couple of things. At how long it was, how many songs there were, how many songs that had not been played very often there were, and how many different eras that they went through. I was at night two of Atlanta, which was June 28th.
Hmm.
And so I'll kind of read the set list. They started with Alone and then Pictures of You and then A Fragile Thing, Love Song, and Nothing Is Forever, which is a new song. Like Cockatoos. What the hell? Like Cockatoos. Who would ever thought that they would play that song? And Burn, which is from a soundtrack. Kyoto Song, another song that you wouldn't think they'd play from Head on the Door. A Night Like This, one of my favorites. Push from Head on the Door also, which again, one of my favorite Cure songs of all time. Followed by Play for Today in a Forest, which you kind of expect, but still, it's great. You think that when you hear those other songs, oh well, they're not going to play those, but they did. Shake Dog Shake from the Edge of the Deep Green Sea, deep cut from Wish, and then End Song, and then the encore. Encore number one was I Can Never Say Goodbye, Want, which is the best song on Wild Mood Swings by far. At Night, Plain Song and Disintegration. And then Encore two it's almost, you almost have to laugh. Encore two was Lullaby, Hot, 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 The Walk, Friday I'm in Love, Close to Me, Why Can't I Be You, In Between Days, Just Like Heaven and Boys Don't Cry. Encore two
Wow.
could have been the show.
Well, that would be 3 hours. Would that be
It
fair?
was.
Two and a
Yeah.
half to 3 hours. That's epic.
Yeah,
That's great.
it was. Two
Just
hours and
list
46 minutes was
a
the
lot of
tour
deep
at.
cuts. A lot of
Yeah.
deep cuts. Mm.
Yep. And I was thrilled. One of the things I was really thrilled about was there was there was six-piece band, so there was nothing missing. They didn't strip down any of the arrangements. So even through
Yeah.
all those different eras, there was, there were two keyboardists, one on each side. You got Roger O'Donnell on one side, and then they brought back Perry Bamonte, who was on
Okay.
keyboards and guitar, kind of bouncing back and forth. That was a treat because he
Yeah.
hadn't been in The Cure in a while, and it was great to see him, great to hear him, and that was what made it so great that they played so many different things from so many different eras. They had the personnel available to make them all sound exactly right. And
Fantastic.
I give Jason Cooper a hard time, but he's gotten really the drummer. He's gotten really quite good, and he was
Yeah.
fantastic at that show. I
Oh,
mean, absolutely fantastic.
that's good. Was it really nicely paced? Was there any
Yes.
lulls? I mean, 3 hours
No.
is a long show.
No, and I
It
didn't
was
feel like
nicely paced, was it?
it was, and I didn't feel like I was going to, oh my God, this is really great, but I need to go. It's,
Or
it's,
as I call on this station, bourbon time. Go to the bar.
there wasn't anything like that. I wouldn't have gotten up for anything,
Yeah.
and I didn't get up at all, and I wouldn't have. But yeah, it was. And one of the things that's so great about it is it was so endearing because Robert seemed, I mean, this was, I don't know how many shows into the tour,
Mm,
18, 19 dates into the
mm.
tour. And he was very much, I mean, he would get ovations and he was very kind of touched by it.
Was he
And he would
chatty?
pause and like hide his face and look down at the
Yeah.
ground and look up, and he looked like he had tears in his eyes, and he would
Yeah.
say
Was he chatty?
a little bit, yeah, a
Yeah.
little bit,
Yeah. Yeah. Because I've
said a
seen
couple
some
of funny things.
I've seen some shows where he's just stared at the shoes and
Oh no, he was
okay,
much.
yeah,
I mean, not really chatty, but
yeah,
chattier than you might think he would have been.
chattier than normal.
Yes, he's just in a good place right now. I think
Yeah, that's
he's
great.
having a
Well,
good time.
I just look. They will come to Australia, I'm sure, because we're a huge market down here,
Yeah.
and that will sell like hotcakes. I reckon they would probably do a. They could easily do a football stadium in 60,000
Oh,
and fill it
sure.
and fill it.
Yeah.
So they're at that level,
Well,
and
they
because
did
they
two nights
haven't,
in Atlanta. I never thought that would have happened.
yeah. Well, it's just because they've been away for so long,
Hmm.
and it'd be like at fever pitch. So um, that'd be magnificent if they could do that.
One of the things that happens in the States, and this may happen in other places for The Cure, but I noticed this. I saw The Cure in '93, I think, which probably would have been
Mm,
the latter part of the touring for this. And one of the things I noticed was that uh, girls would wear prom dresses, like they got dressed up. And I'm sure that there's a meaning behind that, and people are probably going to say in the comments, "Oh, I can't
mm,
believe you don't know about this, Todd." But they were still doing that. There were people in the crowd at the Cure show that were not old enough to have seen the Cure when Disintegration came out that came dressed up.
yeah,
So that
and
was really cool to see that.
you'd have the goth contingent coming out in
Oh yeah,
full force.
yeah.
Um, Look, the Cure over in Australia was actually people that love pub rock love the Cure. So it's going to
Mhm.
be a wide section. You'd have the
Yeah,
alternative folk, you'd have the goths, you'd love the people that just love rock music. They are sort of a cross genre band, fair
yeah.
and square. Oh wow, that's great. So well, I think we both agree we're really sort of at fever pitch, you and I, for the album.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am.
And there was a rumor that there might have been two. Have you heard that? Two
I
albums worth of
have, and
material?
I'm not sure. I'm one of those people that doesn't really like to hear that kind of stuff because a lot of
Mm,
times those things never happen. And so
mm,
I would rather get the album when it's ready and not
mm.
know that it used to be two albums and they combined it into one, or they took a bunch of the heavier songs out to make us another album. I would rather not be privy to that information because we've heard a lot of that kind of stuff. I don't know if you remember, but in I want to say it was 2007 or 2008. It was before 413 Dream came out. Robert Smith fired a couple of people and he was like, I'm going to I can't remember his name now. I just said his name, the keyboardist, Roger O'Donnell. And Roger O'Donnell like went on Twitter and was like, when Twitter used to exist, it was like, I can't believe it. I just got fired by Robert Smith. And he was like, I'm gonna take the Cure out as a trio. And I was just like, oh my God, that's such a bad idea. And then so it would have been hang on, let me go to the right tab. It would have been Simon and Jason Cooper and Robert Smith. And so I thought to myself, oh, what a terrible idea. And then they did this like Yahoo concert. They did this like special thing on Yahoo.
Mm.
And they played three songs, and there were three of their older songs as a trio. And I was like, well, gosh darn it, that actually is pretty good.
Yeah.
But then that didn't happen. They brought Pearl Thompson back and they toured as a four-piece with no keyboards, with the keyboard sounds like triggered by pedals and Pearl's guitar and stuff. And then they reformed as a six-piece. So the Cure is kind of like that. Sometimes you get information and you think that you know what they're going to do, and then he just doesn't do it.
Yeah, well, I think the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, when they were inducted, that definitely triggered a lot of activity. And
Yeah,
I mean, we point fingers at that institution as being a joke because it is. But
yeah,
I just think that I saw the footage of them accepting the award, and he was truly touched because the audience
yeah,
just went bananas.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like that the thing that bothers me, we're going on a tangent, I promise I'll make this quick. The thing that bothers me so much about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is that they have the power to make some really beautiful, inspiring things happen by inducting people at the right time. And when it doesn't happen, you miss out. Like I felt like they were like a couple of years too late with the Moody Blues because they could have, if they'd have given it to the Moody Blues before, at the right time, you could have had a five-piece reunion with Ray Thomas and Mike
yeah,
Pinder, everybody there, and it would have been something really special. And they've done that a lot,
yeah.
where they've just waited and people have been up. Devo. I mean, people have been up and then they
I
don't
mean,
make
even
it.
classic rock bands like Deep Purple,
Yeah.
they could have been inducted 30 years ago, and they finally get inducted. I mean, I related to
And
that.
people have passed, and it's terrible. It's
Do you
sad.
remember at school where you'd have a lineup of the kids, and you'd have two people picking soccer teams, and it's like, you're the last kid picked. It's sort of like that. It's all very arbitrary, and
Yeah,
they actually are controlling the narrative of what is good or bad,
yeah,
what gets in and what's out, and public opinion. People will think, oh, well, my group's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, therefore it's not good enough. So they've
yeah.
got a lot of power, they've got a big platform, and they're controlling the narrative. And it's shite. It really is. It's a
Yeah.
joke, and people shouldn't take take it for what it is. It's just fantasy.
I mean, and it's confusing because when they inducted the Cars, it was that performance was so magical, and that was just a snapshot in time that was never going to happen again. And
So
it
many
was,
great performances, like Prince.
yeah,
Everyone talks
yeah,
about While My
yeah,
Guitar Gently Weeps, where he just went bonkers, and people
yeah,
just realize, wow, what a legend. He's,
right.
this
So
is
you don't want to
Prince.
hate the institution, but at the same time, you kind of do.
Yeah. Well, it's a paradox. It's just we're just totally conflicted. See, this is what happens on Rock Daydream Nation. Me and Todd, we just go in tangents, but that's why I love having this guy on. It's just wonderful. But anyway,
Thanks.
hey,
It's always
promise me
good to
one
be here.
thing. When the
Yes,
album comes out next year, you will come on the channel and we'll do a review. I'd love to.
absolutely.
And next year we'll do another show on the Cure of some description. But I'm just
Yeah,
hopeful
I would
the
like that.
album comes up and we'll do a chat. You can see Todd on the Contrarians. You can see him on Grant's Rock Warehouse. You can see him on a lot of different Rushfans as well.
Rushfans. Yeah.
Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. Click the bell. Tell us what your favorite Cure album is, song, concert experience. But one thing's for certain, you'll see me and Todd in 2024. Have a good day. See ya.